90% of adults agree that schools do not equip their children with real life skills. 90%, they agree. And you're probably one of them. And the reason why I say you're probably one of them is because if you have kids and you send in your kids to school, you probably have a 9 to 5. And if you don't have a 9 to 5, you probably have a business. And if you don't have a business, you are probably some hustler or entrepreneur of some sort, right? You do whatever you can to actually make the money that you can. And I'd like to argue that the skills and or knowledge that you're using is not something that you attained in primary school. And you can say, Colin, why are you involved in primary schools, right? Because it took you about 7 years at least to go through that. None of the information and those skills that you are using now to make the money that you're making is something that you attained in high school. Why am I talking about high school? Because it took you 5 years to go through that, at least 5 years. So the number of years that it took you to actually go through that entire process is 12 years. And the amount of information that you're applying right now to make the money that you're making, right, is probably less than 10% if you were to think about it. 20% max. 20% max. And that's the reason why you need to watch this video. 6,186 secondary schools are available in South Africa. 6,186 high schools or secondary schools available in South Africa. How many tertiaries? 207. This definitely ensures that there will always be unemployment because the math is not mathing. 6,000 schools, individuals matriculating every year, but there's only 207 tertiary institutions, right, that are ready or are supposed to actually accommodate those matriculants. This ensures unemployment. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. So it's not only on the previous video we spoke about 40% of students drop out before reaching grade 12. So it's not just the 40%. Out of the individuals that are matriculating, which is probably part of the 60%, right, there's a portion that will never get to tertiary, even though they pass. Even though they pass. That is a very concerning issue. Another reason why you should actually watch this video, right? We're going to be talking about Julius Malema and the EFF who are pushing for free and decolonized education. I don't know if that is the solution, right? We're going to be talking about it. And one of the important major things that we're going to talk about in this video is you will learn 5 mindset shifts that separate the wealthy from the struggling to help you build that business. There's a mindset that you need to have, right, in order to basically equip yourself, be strong enough to actually move on despite the challenges that you're going through, right? Despite the financial challenges that you're going through. And these mindset shifts are shifts that I've actually put together from different individuals all over the world, the likes of your Elon Musk, Patrick Bet-David, Grant Cardone, Vusi Thembekwayo, all of that. And the 5 mindset shifts that I'm going to be talking about, that one is to have if you're actually struggling, right? You need to have that. And these individuals that I've just mentioned, they actually agree, right? So stick around. Greetings and welcome to the NCS podcast. This is your host, collensilaule. And again, we are talking about Julius Malema and the EFF. Julius Malema and the EFF actually argue that the South African education system has failed the youth. It has failed the youth. And I completely agree with that. 100% completely agree with that. The South African education system has failed the youth, but not in the sense that they are talking about. They are talking about having free, decolonized education. In my opinion, I think it's a contradiction between those two things that they are standing for. That South African education system has failed the youth, and now as the solution, they want to bring in free decolonized education. In fact, free decolonized education is only going to bring in more problems. Not to say that it's a bad solution, not to say that it shouldn't be something that is implemented. I'm just saying for that problem of the South African education system failing the youth, the solution shouldn't be free decolonized education. In fact, with regards to the education system failing the youth, a free decolonized education would be a issue when it comes to solving that particular problem. And the reason why I'm saying that is because if you have a multitude of individuals coming in, right, and getting education, right, but we have not really solved the core problem, employment, right, industrialization, right, companies coming in from outside the country, basically investing in South Africa. If we have not solved that, then the free education that we all talking about is not actually gonna solve the problem. In fact, it's probably to some extent gonna make things worse, either for tertiary institutions, because we do not have enough tertiary institutions. Like I mentioned, we have about 207 tertiary institutions. That is colleges, private colleges, that is everything outside of high school that you can actually involve yourself in, right? 207 and 6,186 secondary institutions. Again, the numbers, the math is not mathing. And this is why I actually hate traditional media. I know I'm basically off ramping a little bit, right? When it comes to this topic. This is why I do not like traditional media. And not to say I don't watch it completely. There's some things that I, watch for like 15 minutes and then just switch it off and whatnot. And everything else I do like, my own research and stuff like that, get the facts, data, the reason why I hate it is because when they get to a point where they invite the likes of Julius Malema or anybody in that party or anybody in another party, right? They basically do not talk about the core problems, right? They talk about an issue, but they talk about a solution that does not solve the core problem, right? In this case, they would talk about free education and say that the education system, South African education system, is failing the youth. But free decolonized education does not solve the issue of the system or the education system failing the youth. It doesn't, right? In fact, it makes things worse. It makes things worse because there's going to be multitudes of students coming in from high schools, going into tertiary institutions so that they can actually get employment. But the issue is that we do not have companies or basically business individuals coming in from outside the country to invest in South Africa, build companies, build factories to allow us or to allow our children and young individuals to actually go into those environments and start working and earning money. So traditional media has a tendency of, talking about all these things that gloss over the core problems. And that's how I see all traditional media conversations that are happening, whether it's ENCA, Newsroom Africa, SABC News, whatever the case may be, CNN, Al Jazeera, all these other platforms, right? They gloss over the core problem. That's why I hate it, right? I know that's a lot to basically kind of take in, right? We don't have enough businesses, right, to actually accommodate everybody. We do not have enough tertiaries to actually accommodate the matriculants, right? We don't have enough of anything. So free education to some extent will just cause more problems than actually solve them. So what's the point of actually going to school if you're not actually going to get a job? What is the point of going to school if you're not learning the things that are essential for you to survive in the society that we live in, right? Hey, I'm just, if you disagree with what I'm saying, if you disagree with what I'm saying, comment down below. Let me know what you think, right? I know I'm just rushing through this, right? Only 207 tertiary institutions exist, meaning there aren't enough seats for everyone. There aren't enough seats for everyone. Free education, fine. If there's free and there's not enough seats for everyone to go into tertiary, we haven't really solved the problem. We haven't really solved the problem. How are we going to get all these individuals into those tertiary institutions? So I had an interview with Ayanda Bingo, right? One of my first interviews in this channel, right? Very fascinating individual. With her sister, they started this thing called Uplifted Abroad, a company called Uplifted Abroad. They help individuals basically go study abroad, right? And I had an interview with her. Check this video out.
Because we are struggling here in South Africa, having high rate of graduate youth unemployment, and we also struggle in terms of getting acceptance into institutions locally. Our institutions locally are very few compared to the population that we have. So you find qualifying students not being able to get into university not because they don't qualify, but because there just is no space. So overseas, they're sitting with institutions they're basically sitting with empty seats. So just trying to correct in that sense. Like South Africa has about 26 public tertiary institutions for a population of almost 70 mil. And you find countries such as Ireland with populations of 5 mil having 36 public tertiary institutions.
We find qualifying students who are not able to enroll in these tertiary institutions.
So you find qualifying students not being able to get into university not because they don't qualify, but because there just is no space.
Qualifying individuals cannot enroll, some of them cannot enroll in these tertiary institutions. This is a major problem. Again, she has helped a number of individuals go study abroad, earn while they study abroad, right? So much benefits that we basically discussed on that video, right? If you want to check it out, there's a link in the description, somewhere here or in the description, right? So go check it out, right? there is a major issue when it comes to education. So free decolonized education, decolonized, maybe that's another argument. Free education, right? It's probably currently not the way to go because the core problem has not been fixed. Because the real issues here, right? Again, it's not whether education is free or not. It's about what subjects are being taught in those institutions. What subjects are being taught there that I can now apply? What subjects were being taught when I was back in primary or high school that I can now apply in the current society that I'm in? So that is a major problem. It's not only about that, it's about the number of tertiary institutions, the number of tertiary institutions that are available. It's not only about that, it's the number of companies that are willing to actually hire these people who are actually getting the so-called qualification. Right? Major issue, but the government is spending billions. No increase in tertiary institutions, that is dramatic, billions. We see a lot of individuals or probably business individuals, I don't even know, probably even governments, I don't know, building malls all over the place. Wherever you go, you see a mall, big building, shops everywhere, game, shop, right, everything. But there's no factories. There's no factories. We are being incentivized to be consumers rather than creators. I'm going to say that again. We are being incentivized to be consumers rather than creators. Creators of jobs, creators of businesses. The education system is not pushing us in that direction of being creators. It's not. It's pushing us in the direction of being workers, not creators, not business individuals. Right? This is a major issue. Now, schools do not teach financial literacy. They don't. They don't teach sales. And I would argue those are one of the two major things that one can actually attain as a skill and or knowledge, right, in order to basically survive in the society that we live in. Right? I think I feel like I'm being made a fool out of, right? Every time when I hear, politicians speak, because they're glossing over the problem, all in hopes to get votes, all in hopes to get votes, just to get votes, because it makes sense. If I know that I come from a poor community and I don't have the money to send my kids to university, and some politician who is famous is talking about free education, I'm obviously going to vote for that person. I'm obviously going to vote for that person. This is just a scheme, or it's just a strategy to get the votes. They are glossing over the problem. The problem is not free education, it's the subjects that are being taught. There are already quite a number of students who are getting free education already. But we still do not see a change. We still do not see a change. The subjects, the number of tertiary institutions, the number of companies that are willing to actually accommodate the people who now have qualifications or basically hire them, glossing over the issue. So how do you escape the system? How do you escape the system if there's so much going on? If there's so much happening that you have no control over, right? And I listen to a lot of individuals that have made it. I listen to the likes of, Vusi Thembekwayo, Patrick Bet-David, Elon Musk. I listen to them, right? And in some things, I do not agree with what they're saying. But there's a lot of things that they're saying that make sense. And there are 5 things that I'm going to mention now in terms of mindset shifts that they all agree with, right? And that is something I believe can help an individual basically break free from that system and basically start doing something about the current situation that they're in, right? Number 1, stop relying on the government for solutions. You need to stop it. I know that is probably going to make somebody angry. Stop relying on those solutions. Those people are not here for you. Like I mentioned, they are here for the votes. The things that they talk about are there to incentivize you to vote for them. Because if you listen closely enough, right, you're going to realize that they are glossing over the core problem and they're not talking about the real issue, right? Although it can get heated, although it can get a little bit serious in that debate or that argument, it's not the core problem. They just want your votes. If you listen closely enough, you will find that in some of these arguments that they're having or conversations that they're having, they gloss over the problem. So stop relying on the government for solutions. Now, if I may give an example, the government may come and say, you know what, we want to give a relief, just some fine funds to basically relieve these individuals in these tough times, right? I think some of you may remember back in 2020, the pandemic, whatnot. There was some funds basically given to individuals, right? Guess where that money goes? That money is going to go back to the people who have always been prepared, who have not always relied on the government, who took an initiative to start something on their own, who took an initiative to basically build a business, right? And make money out of it, right? Because the government can say, okay, Colin is struggling. Now let's give him 10,000 rands to basically help him out through these tough times, right? Let's give him 10,000 rands. Guess what I'm going to do? Let's say I live in a share, for example, whatever the case may be, God forbid, right? I live in a share, whatever the case may be, and I need the money to basically support my family, whatever the case may be, right? I'm gonna spend that money and probably, most likely, gonna buy groceries for the next 3 months or so, for the next 4 months, whatever the case may be, right? And where am I buying the groceries from, right? I'm going to ShopRite, I'm going to Checkers, I'm going to all these places to basically get the food that I need for the next 3 months, because probably the lockdown is for 3 months. Like, the president has probably mentioned stage 3, stage 4, and all of that, right? So I'm going to spend money on the people that already have businesses that do not rely on governments. Trust me, ShopRite is not relying on government. They're not relying on government. In fact, the government is relying on them, because when the government says, oh, we're going to create jobs, we're going to create this, and ShopRite or any of these big companies, maybe Anglo-American or whatever company, decide to say, you know what, we are just going to let off, 1,000 people, and basically, yeah, because we don't have the money to pay them. They can say that. The government is going to be like, oh, nope. They're gonna go according to what that particular company says, if they have that power. So there are people who are relying on governments, right? Who are relying on governments for solutions, and they are using that solution, whether it's funds, relief funds, whatever the case may be. They're using it on companies that are owned by people who do not rely on governments, but governments rely on them. The governments rely on them. The governments rely on ShopRite to keep the promises that they promised the people. Hopefully that makes sense. If that does not make sense, I don't know what will. So what can you do? What can you do, right? If you're not relying on government solutions, right? You need to build skills. So instead of waiting for the system to fix it, instead of waiting for the government to fix that particular problem, why not start building a high level income skill that is going to help you basically get that money that you want to get, buy the clothes that you want to get, buy that car that you want to get, support the family that you want to support. The internet is one of the best ways that you can get free education right now. Free education. Now, to some extent, it's not free, because you're going to have to buy data, get Wi-Fi, etc. Right? But to some extent, it's one of the cheapest ways to actually attain skill, or basically get the knowledge that you need to basically do something else that will help you in your life, right? Use the internet, put together, or start getting a high level income skill that will help you get the money that you need to do the things that you want to do. Number 2, school does not teach you how to make money. That is a mindset shift that you need to have, and understand that school does not teach you how to make money. Again, if you have children and you're sending your kids to school, you probably have a 9 to 5. You probably have a business. You're probably an entrepreneur. The skills and or knowledge that you're using to make that money is not anything that you've probably acquired while you were in primary or high school. And you may argue that, tertiary has taught me a lot more versus primary school versus high school, right? I agree, but it doesn't teach you how to make money. Sales is one of the most important skills that you're ever going to learn. And you're not going to learn it in high school. You're not going to learn it in primary, right? Now, you may learn a few things there and there in tertiary, but then again, not there to help you make money, right? Not there to help you make money. There is a significant demand in there being a subject like sales, in there being a subject like financial literacy. Those things, again, I would argue, are the most 2 important subjects that one can actually attain, or information that one can actually attain to help them live in the society that they live in, or make money that is needed for them to support the families that they're supporting, or get the things that they want to get. Now, the likes of Elon Musk, and the likes of Hormozi, and the likes of Patrick Bet-David, they also became millionaires by learning how to monetize their knowledge, whether it was offline or online. They learn how to monetize their knowledge and or skill, right? Now you tell me a subject that is mainly focused on that, monetizing what you know and making money out of it, right? Learn how to monetize your knowledge. And one of the best ways you can do that is understanding sales, understanding how to speak to somebody, understanding how you can convince somebody that what you want is what they want, convincing somebody that what you want is what they want, right? Now, there's a whole lot of different definitions that I can give you in terms of sales, but for now, I'm going to give you that one. If you have a skill that you'd like to monetize or knowledge that you'd like to monetize, comment it down below, right? And I'll see if I can respond to that. Mindset shift number 3, which is again common across all these individuals who are sharing information, who are rich, making it in life, very famous, right? Again, the likes of Alex Hormozi. Wealth is about ownership, not jobs. One of the AIs that we all know about is ChatGPT. ChatGPT is destroying all copywriters. Copywriters was a legit career path, and people were earning thousands and thousands of dollars doing that profession. Now, there are industries that are not aware of this or do not even care. But now, a high school individual that just finished that just matriculated can now become a copywriter for a company that is making millions and millions of rands or dollars a month because of AI. Now, the person who went to school and got an education and became a copywriter or something like that is now losing to a kid who just recently passed matric. Hopefully you understand that. AI is going to disrupt some industries. We need to focus on reskilling, relearning, right? Reskilling and relearning. And in my opinion, get to a point where we industrialize the country, right? Ourselves, because again, the government is not doing anything, right? I mean, look at your likes of your Transnet and your SA Airlines. And yeah, it's just a whole big problem. Denel, a whole other big problem, right? Now, the other thing when it comes to mindset shift number 3, wealth is about ownership, not jobs, right? We need to get to a point where we learn how to own assets, preferably digital assets, right? Because it's faster, it's quicker to actually own something of that nature, right? If I can put together this video and make it part of a course and hide it somewhere, and in order for you to access it, you need to pay a certain amount of money. I own an asset, and I tell you that, okay, no, this video is talking about 1 2 3 1 2 3. It will help you into 1 2 3 1 2 3, right? And you pay like $5 or $2 or 10 rands for it, whatever the case may be. I have a digital asset, because in order for you to access it, you are paying a certain amount of money, and I'm making money just by sleeping, because I'm not waking up switching on this video, right? I'm not waking up making sure that the video is played. No, I don't have to do that. I just set the whole system up once, and that's it, right? So you need to learn to own your own income generating assets. It shouldn't just be an asset. It shouldn't just be a skill, but it should be income generating, right? You can own real estate, you can own stocks, right? Now, Alex Hormozi has turned his business from going from zero, right? Growing from zero all the way up to hundreds of millions of dollars. He owns a company called acquisition.com, and he has done that by building income generating assets and buying income generating assets, right? Because he buys companies. The company that he owns basically buys companies. Very interesting stuff here that you need to basically look into, right? So mindset shift number 4, financial literacy is real education. You'll find individuals earning 60,000 rands, 40,000 rands, 80,000 rands, 100,000 rands, but they still live paycheck to paycheck. No business whatsoever. If they become unemployed right now, a lot is going to go wrong. So financial literacy is the real education, right? Understanding how banks work. Now, let me give an example. Let's say you save about 10,000, right? And you've been hiding that money, 10,000 rands. You've been hiding that money somewhere under your pillow, maybe between your mattress and the base of your bed, whatever the case may be. You've been doing that for a couple of months or even years. You have, let's say, for example, 10,000. Now you hear that, the bank can actually give you a 6% return annually on that money if you put it in the bank. Just by putting it in the bank, it will give you a 6% return. 10% if you're lucky, which 10%, which I kind of doubt is going to happen in some banks, right? 10%, let's say 10%, for example. In other words, you basically gonna get $1,000 every year just by putting that 10,000 rand there. But here's the other thing that the bank can do with that money, right? There's this thing called fractional reserve banking. Fractional reserve banking allows the bank to basically take three quarters, if not more, of that money that you put in the bank and borrow it or lend it to somebody else, right? Lending it to somebody else who basically needs the money. Let's say that somebody else basically their fridge just broke or something like that, and they need a new freezer or a fridge, whatever the case may be, right? They go to the bank, hey, I need money. The bank doesn't have money. The bank took your money and gave it to that guy who needs the fridge. And they say to that guy, hey, this is a 6-month loan. You need to pay it back in 6 months. And after finishing in 6 months, you would have paid back about 12K. You understand? About 12K. So for the next 6 months or so, you're going to be paying 2,000 rand because you don't have the money right now, right? Fractional reserve banking. So they can keep about 25% or even less, right? And then borrow out the rest of the 75 or 80% or 90% of the money that you gave them, right? That is when I started understanding that just blew my head. I just Oh, I didn't even want to put my money there anymore, right? Because then again, they are taking their money, that money that you put in there, and pretending like it's theirs, and then they invest it somewhere. Why can't I do the same? Why can't I do the same? So let's say, for example, they want to give me 6% on that 10,000, right? Which will be about 600 rands, right? Yearly, right? That 600 rand, isn't there something that I can do with that 10,000 rands that can give me 600 rands in that year? On the one hand, you will be putting your 10,000 rands in the bank and you'll be getting 600 rands by the end of the year, right? On the other hand, instead of putting that 10,000 rand in the bank, you'll be putting it in a business or in some small startup side hustle, right? And your aim would be to get the 600 rands before the end of the year on top of that 10,000 rands. The difference between the two scenarios is that on the one hand, you gave the bank the money, right? You are not gaining, you're only gaining 600 rands. On the other hand, you basically put it in a side hustle, you are gaining the 600 rand, and on top of that, you are gaining a skill. Very important scenarios. I know I'm diverting a little bit here, but this is something that I think we all need to think about right here. I think we all need to think about it. Financial literacy is the real education, right? Understanding how banks work will save you from a lot of trouble. Understanding how insurance works is going to help you in so many ways. Understanding how all these companies work and all these loans work and all of that will save you a world of trouble, right? So think about it, right? Again, people are living paycheck to paycheck because they got into these systems that put them in positions where they constantly have to work and they don't have enough to start their own thing. They don't have enough to start their own thing. We have people who recently get jobs and immediately they're buying a car, right? And they don't have money to put aside anymore to start a side hustle or to start a business, right? Financial literacy is the real education, right? So again, schools don't teach tax and investments. They don't teach sales and negotiation, right? Very important. They don't teach how to start a business. They don't do that, right? They don't teach how to build wealth. They don't do that. If education is meant to prepare you for the future, why does it ignore money management? I mean, that is a very crucial, a very essential question to answer. If education is meant to prepare you for the future, why does it ignore money management? Money management, if you do not understand money, then you have a problem in terms of surviving in the society that you're in. Let's say, for example, you make it through your primary school years, high school, tertiary, and there is that one company that is willing to hire you and give you that job. Trust me, if you come from a disadvantaged background, there's going to be people that are going to need your help, And financial management or financial literacy is the subject or is the skill and or knowledge that you need to acquire so that you can survive in the society that you live in, right? Be able to help whoever needs their help, but still be smart about where you put your money. And mindset shift number five something that you need to realize, something that needs to kind of click, right, is that the internet is the new university. The internet is the new university. You need to get to a point where you realize that anything that you want or anything that you want to know about, you can find it in the internet. And almost any skill that you actually want to attain, you can actually find it in the internet. There are companies right now, as we speak, that are hiring individuals without qualifications. I promise you, you just need to prove that you can actually do one, two, three, and you are hired, right? There are articles on that. I understand people, other individuals who basically say, no, I don't want to be on social media because there's too much information that is completely irrelevant. There are strategies that you can use to basically kind of push the content that you don't like aside and basically focus on the content that you want to focus on for the skill that you want to attain, right? Because again, there's a lot of information, which is why I suggested online courses. Online courses, online courses, preferably outside of social media platforms, where you can actually log in, put in your password and basically get in there and focus. Because in that platform, wherever you log in, not YouTube, not Facebook, that platform was created by an individual or a company, whatever the case may be, and it separates you from social media platforms. Unlike other social media platforms, when you're watching a video on the left or right or at the bottom top, there is other videos or other pieces of content that are suggested to you. You understand? So you lose focus very quickly, right? Rather separate yourself from social media platforms, get a free online course in relation to whatever skill that you want to attain, and basically log into that platform and basically start learning, right? Very important, right? Now, it is said that by 2030, 50% of jobs will require digital skills. Right? 50% of jobs will require digital skills. And the question would be, what is the government doing in order to, basically help out when it comes to that? Right? So there's going to be a lot of reskilling. There's going to be a lot of relearning, right? There's going to be a lot of that, right? What is the government doing to help that? The education system is very much outdated. What is the government doing if 50% of jobs are going to require digital skills, right? And now that is what I got that from the WEF, World Economic Forum website, right? So if that information is true and legit, and we see our president basically working with the WEF, they're probably doing nothing. They're probably doing nothing because I would like to argue that our president, Ramaphosa, is mentioning changes and probably policies and all of that that would be perfect for a developed country, but not perfect for a developing country. Right? We still have a lot of things to do. Like a lot of people want us to skip the third industrial revolution, the second industrial revolution. We would just they want us to skip all of that and basically, go into the fourth industrial revolution with them. Right? With the challenges that we have, I mean, that is crazy. That is crazy. Right? But then I don't agree with what the WEF is basically doing and what it's saying. Right? I don't agree with that. But I thought that would be an interesting information for you guys to find out and understand that the president is not against the WEF. He's working with the WEF. Right. Instead of a degree, some people are resorting to basically getting some education on YouTube. Right. I promise you, there are a lot of people right now who can trade forex right now because of YouTube. There are a lot of people right now who can play the piano because of YouTube. There are a lot of people right now who can, fix certain appliances around their house because of YouTube. There are a lot of people right now who have gained massive amounts of knowledge because of YouTube, right? So use that to your advantage. Use that to your advantage, right? So you can literally, again, get a high income skill just by focusing when you go on social media and not just basically doze off and watch everything and anything that basically comes your way. You don't want to be all over the place. You want to maybe pick 2 or 3 individuals who can help you acquire that skill, who are creating content in regards to that skill, and then watch only them. So if you want to stick to YouTube, stick to YouTube. If you want to stick to TikTok, stick to TikTok. But I do doubt that TikTok will give you a significant amount of information, right? Again, it's short form content, right? 60 seconds, 10 seconds, So you want information. an information-driven platform. YouTube is one of those areas, right? And if you don't mind reading as well, yeah, go for it, right? There's AI that will help you with the studying process. There's a whole lot of things that will help you shorten the process of you acquiring that high income skill, right? So yeah, go for it. So do you think free education will solve South Africa's unemployment crisis? Will free education solve South Africa's unemployment crisis, or free decolonized education? Will it solve South Africa's unemployment crisis, right? And just comment down below. Yes, it will. No, it won't, right? Or you can just say undecided. And I'd really like to hear your reasoning behind your answers, right? I'd really appreciate it. I'd really appreciate that. And hopefully that will inspire me to create different types of videos that will answer your questions, right? If you have a skill or knowledge that you want to monetize and make money out of, and you don't know how to go about it, all right, there's a free ebook in the description. There's a link in the description. You can get a free ebook that will kind of allude to how one can go about it, right? Monetize Your Expertise in 7 days is the name of the ebook. And maybe you don't want to download the ebook, right? You can basically just comment down the skill that you want to monetize or the knowledge that you want to monetize, and maybe I can help you out on it, right? Maybe you have a question on what you need to do next, whatever the case may be, right? I can help you out. I'd really like to comment on at least 5 of those answers, right? The first 5 of those answers that of the question that I just mentioned, right? I would really like to at least comment on that and help somebody out, right? I'd really appreciate that. If you want to see more of this type of content, I would really appreciate that you subscribe, you switch on the notification bell, that you like this video. Again, keep on commenting. If you don't know what to comment, hashtag Growth4biz, hashtag NCS podcast, or hashtag collensilaule. I would really appreciate that. And also tag somebody or share this video with somebody who would basically appreciate this type of information, right? Somebody who would really want more of this information, because we're just scratching the surface here. I do want to talk a little bit more on education. And I do want to talk a little bit more on how to monetize your expertise, how to monetize the skill that you currently have, or the skill that you've already attained, whatever the case may be, make money out of the thing that you're good at. I don't want to talk more about that. If you really, really want to basically help us out, please subscribe, switch on the notification bell. And yeah, I'll see you on the next video.